Okay, writing equations of circles. What they do in a circle, they give you what the center point is and then a point somewhere on the outside, and you have to write an equation for it. Now, you don't have to graph the circle. Writing an equation isn't too terribly hard. Just let me give you what's an idea of what you're trying to do. So xy coordinate plane. The center's -3, -1. And then 6, 7 is another point on the outside of the circle. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that is your radius, and it goes all the way around the outside. It'd be equal distance. I'm not drawing it to scale. Now, you're like, well, how do you write you can't write an equation for that? Bullcrap. Anything I can put on a coordinate plane, I can write an equation of. Some are basically virtually impossible, but a circle's not one of those things because it's a format that you can use. You put an equals and you put r to the second all by itself. That's your radius to the second. You're going to have to find, and this is your radius. You don't need that picture there to do the problems. Now you put parentheses plus parentheses, and you put second powers, kind of like you would on the distance, and you put minus, minus, but you put x and y, okay? That's how you're going to do that. Okay, now let's talk about this. After the minuses is your center point. So minus, and then if I'm going to put a negative after a minus, I switch it to +3 on x and then +1 on y. Now your radius. Remember, the radius is also to the second power. Well, we have to find what the radius is. Now remember, it goes from -3, -1 from the center, and I know this one point outside. Well, from there to there is my radius. So I'm basically using the distance formula. The big square root with the second powers and then the minuses. So I go x minus x, it's going to be -3, 6, and then -1, 7. Now, this is why I don't want you doing the square root, because you're going to screw it up if you do it. So parentheses -3 minus 6 to the second plus -1 minus 7 to the second. That's 145. Now that's what your r equals. But your r is to the second. Well, if I take this to the second, that cancels the square root out, and I have 145. So I just go 145. Boom, there it's done. Not complicated. It's teachers convoluted all the time. It ain't that rocket science. Okay, next, parentheses, second. And note, you don't write a square root. You write this out, and then r to the second. X minus, y minus. This is for the center points. They're both positive, so I just slip a 4 and a 5 in there. Now the radius is from this point, the distance from this point to this point. So it's that big long square root with the x's subtracted and the y's subtracted, just like you did on that last packet. So the x is 4 and then -7, so I go +7 with that. And then 5, -1. So I'm going to put a negative, so it'd be +1. So I'm going to put my square root there. Square root of 157. Now that r is to the second, so if I take that to the second and that to the second, square root goes away, and I just have the value 157 for that. Doesn't tell you again. We don't need it over convoluted here. Okay, equals r seconds by itself, and then I'm going to have 2 parentheses plus each other, get the second powers there with the minus, and then you put x and y. And then the center, okay, you got -1, so you're going to go +1, because you don't want to put a minus negative. That looks like crap. And then you're going to put 0 there, but the 0 means we all have to do something else really easy at the end. Now the r is the same thing. You got to find the distance from here to that point on the outside, because it's the same all the way around. You just got to find the distance. So r equals, get those parentheses, raise them to the second power, and then put your subtraction operators inside, and then you put your x's in. -1 plus 1, then 0, 6. Some of you are like, ain't that 0? Yeah. So that'd be 0 to the second 0. That'd be -6, but to the second would be 36. So I'm guessing I'm going to get 36 in there. Now some are like, well, that's 6. Yeah, don't put that. Just don't trust the process here. Okay, 36. But I don't want to put that as 6 because I need to take that to the second power, which wipes out the square root, and I have the number 36. See, if I put 6, I'm just making the problem more confusing for myself. Now, there's one thing, when 0 is being subtracted in here, you need to rewrite this equation. You keep the x plus 1 to the second, but then here you just put y without a parentheses to the second, because subtracting 0 from anything is just y, okay? That is how that needs to be written. Okay, and then the same thing's going to happen here. Equals r squared remember, x and y go here, and then I put my center point 3 and 0, so that's going to be just y to the second when I'm after I find my r, and then that's a point outside the circle, so I use my distance formula because that finds my radius. Okay. So I'm going to have parentheses plus parentheses, raise them both to the second, and subtract. Okay, so x, we're going to go 3 plus 2, and then the y is 0 minus 6. That's 5 to the second, which is 25, plus -6 to the second. -6 to the second is 36. It's 25 plus 36, which is 61, but here we'll calculate it just to make sure I'm right. If you're not good at mental math, you need to use your calculator. So 61. Again, that's to the second, though, so I put that, and then put that to the second, and the square root's out of there, and I can just insert 61 here. Now, we do have a 0 being subtracted, so I need to remove the parentheses from the expression there. I still put the second equals 61. Okay, really pretty easy.